The El Nino starts to become active with lots of twists and turns in the weather over the next 7 days. So let's take a look at the big picture on the North American view and show you what we're talking about. Here is the overall jet stream going forward. We can already see our new storm development that's going to be taking place off the west coast. But the jet stream now has dipped all the way down into the deep south. You can see the northwest flow. And that is the Arctic blast that we've been contending with over the last couple of days. It actually dips all the way down into the deep south tonight. In fact, they've got freeze warnings in place as far south as the Florida Panhandle. But you can see the overall dip in the jet stream pulling that very intense colder air. And that's also producing an intense lake effect snow breaking out across these regions. In fact, we've actually picked up very intense snowfall. Some of these totals are pretty impressive up there. Let's kind of zoom in over the last 24 hours. We're talking upwards to almost 15, 16 inches of snow in and around the Buffalo region. If you go between Syracuse and Watertown, yeah, there is the bullseye of 23 inches of snow over just the last 24 hours. It's still coming down, folks. We've got a unique setup with very warm waters over those lakes. And this time of year, all it takes is colder air to the north and the perfect wind direction. And you're going to send out 1 to 3 inch per hour snowfall rates. And that's exactly what's happening up there. So if you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and you're in. This is my new channel, the Pal Ponder Ultra channel. I'll be doing a lot more content on this channel going forward. So if you hadn't subscribed already, please do so, so you can follow all my daily breakdowns. So here's the setup as far as the Arctic blast is concerned. This is the last hurrah, if you will, of the last colder surge that's in portions of the east. And like I mentioned, that cold surge is going to be shifting all the way down to the deep south later on tonight and shifting eastward. But you can already see the warm up is rapidly approaching just off to its west. And eventually that warmer air will overcome this colder pocket of air. And that will be setting the stage as this lip mechanism out here off west. That's going to be the culprit to produce showers and thunderstorms, and some of those actually will be turning severe by the time we head into that Thursday time frame. So you can see the setup on the surface map with kind of like that northwest flow. You can see these bands they're small but mighty, folks. They're really small bands, but it doesn't take much. When a lake effect snow setup, it could snow, a foot, and then you go 5 miles down the street, you got nothing. And that's exactly what they're dealing with up there. But yeah, like that cold air is going to be shifting further south, but you can already see the moisture return further south into the deep south of Texas. And there's that low pressure center out west. So we are going to be getting close enough that we'll be bringing some beneficial showers to central and portions of Southern California as this will traverse across to the Four Corners regions. And as it does, here's the setup as fast as that moisture return goes. This is the dew points by the time we head into that Thursday afternoon time frame. Yeah, look at far south, folks. Down there in southeast Texas, they're approaching 70 dew points. That is very high down there. And so that's the concern between, say, Victoria, Houston, the Beaumont, Fort Arthur area, down here towards Waco, out and towards East Texas. This is the main area that I'm concerned about. All three modes of severe storms during the day on Thursday, and some of these tornado parameters are already increasing within activity. So this could be almost a morning event type setup going into the afternoon, but I am expecting a pretty active, bumpy ride. So if you live down there into the southeast region, just be high alert for severe weather during the day on Thursday time frame. Here's the setup on the surface map as that low pressure center will be continuing to come into view by then. Yeah, it's going to be cold enough, underneath that to bring some more snow in those places like into Santa Fe, New Mexico, back into Angel File region. but just all rain I'm looking for into the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But once you get into East Texas, yes, that's what I will have to be concerned about, severe storms down there in Southeast Texas as well. And that will be traversing across, impacting portions of Arkansas into Louisiana, and eventually shift further north into Missouri and getting into portions of Illinois. But here's your heavier rain during the day on Thursday. It's mainly going to be, yes, you're going to be picking up some rain, but it's probably going to be a half inch or less. Higher amounts will be east. So these areas in green will likely be getting at least an inch of rainfall down there in Southeast Texas into Louisiana, back into portions of Mississippi, into Arkansas, as well as into southern portions of Missouri, into southern portions of Illinois as well. You can see the rainfall for those 3 days, right? So this is a graph of the next 72 hours of precipitation between now and December the 1st here on Friday. There's the heavier rains impacting the coastal regions of Washington and Oregon and Northern California. Lighter amounts as you shift further south, but still they'll take whatever they can get down there. And then whatever's left will squeeze out over the Four Corners region. It's not until you get to the Gulf of Mexico where it's able to tap into more moisture. And you can see the graph in the bottom of the screen here. Those areas in purple, yes, there's that 1 to possibly upwards to 2 inches. And further south along the I-10 corridor, you could be picking up 2 to 3 inches of heavier rain. But as it moves into that Saturday time frame, this is that 24-hour period from essentially Friday morning to Saturday morning. Now it's shifted a little bit further off to the east. So now places like into the Illinois region are going to be picking up those areas in blue, 1 to possibly 1.5 inches of rainfall. That shifts into Indiana, and then a little bit lighter amounts once you go into Ohio, as well as into portions of Pennsylvania. But again, further south you live, the heavier rains with these darker reds kind of appear. And that's exactly what happens on Sunday, as this first band kind of peters out, if you will, and the second band, that's where you've got more moisture to work with, higher dew points, higher, warmer air to contend with, because that warm front's going to be pushing in, and you're going to be getting some heavier rain across these regions. So for that 24-hour period, it's mainly going to be highlighted over Georgia by now, and then over South Carolina and back into North Carolina, as this will continue to push off to the east. And as it does, the warm up is going to be real. It's going to be rapidly changing from what it is now or going into tonight, and then headed into Sunday. It's definitely going to be feeling on the warmer side, for December standards. But yeah, 10 degrees above average for a good part of the central and eastern 2/3 of the U.S. That'll be on Sunday. And there's your precipitation heading into that Sunday with the moisture flow. This is your water vapor content. So this is where all the additional moisture will be, mainly confined to the southeast, heading off into the Carolinas. And then of course you have that pocket of energy that's coming off the atmospheric river up there from Washington and Oregon, as well as into Northern California by then. But as rapidly Sunday does, this is how fast the weather moves. You'll have another pretty significant trough diving in quickly. So this is already Monday, how rapidly it changes of the colder air mass. This is going to be a quick shot of colder air going to be moving through. And look at the blue line. That's your freezing line, and are back in the picture all the way down into Kentucky again. And that is going to set the stage for a renewed threat of heavier snowfall, as this low pressure center will be coming up into the northeast. It's going to tap into some of that colder air. So now you're talking places in upstate New York, back into Massachusetts, into Vermont and New Hampshire, and going into Maine. Yeah, they could be looking at 1, 2, 3 inch per hour snowfall rates, with very intense snowfall for that, again, that 24 to 36 hour time frame. As the moderate rain shifts further south into Florida by then. But here's your overall seasonal drought outlook that was just updated last week, talking about the improvements of much more active subtropical jet stream getting more active. So we're starting to see the beginning stages of these areas that are in an exceptional drought, like in Louisiana, back into Mississippi, they're going to be putting a major dent. It's still looking to have a drought, but it has drastic improvements. But if you just shift a little bit further off into the east, these areas in green here, that's where it feels like you could be erasing the drought just altogether between now and going over into the winter months. So yes, it definitely sees, you know, a much more active subtropical jet stream come into fruition, and a little bit lesser active polar jet with, you know, the drought kind of persisting up here across these northern regions where you do kind of have a dry slot right now for the foreseeable future. And there's the rain as you go into that 6th and 7th time frame. So notice the Pacific Northwest, right? It just gets inundated. This kind of relentless area of just moderate to heavier rains at time. And you'll have another heavier swath entering back in the picture during that 6th and 7th time frame as well. So if you break it down on the temperature front, it's going to be overall mild for the next, you know, after we have this last hurrah of the Arctic blast. And we kind of went over this on my overall December forecast. If you hadn't watched that video, go ahead and take a sneak peek at that as well. But the breakdown for the next 10 days is on fairly the milder side, and between, you know, the December 1st and through December 6th, even accounting for that quick blast of colder air, it's still not going to be enough. It's still going to be more or less above average. And then it still kind of looks that way from the 3rd through the 8th. And going into the next week, going to be overall on the milder side, as we more or less have a Pacific flow coming in, and there's not really any Arctic air to contend with to tap into. So more or less it's going to be, you know, above average, not just this week, you know, starting on beyond Wednesday, but going into next week as we're contending with the warmer air. And as we contend with the warmer air, we're going to be dealing with the stormier setup down further south, and very heavy rain as well. So yes, these areas desperately need the rain, but obviously they don't need the severe weather, but it's going to come with a little bit of everything over the next couple of days. So you just have to be in high alert down there, you know, across these regions as these systems come across. But definitely beneficial rains lifting further north as well, back into Illinois, through Ohio, back into Kentucky, as well as into Tennessee, through West Virginia, and up here into the Northeast. So definitely be looking forward to some beneficial rains, and some of this will be obviously mixing in with snow during that Monday and Tuesday time frame of next week after the lake effect snows end. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch the next update. Fire protect you for and after the storm.